morning, I mainly focused on the power of our sense consciousnesses and how they dominate our mental states, mental states, and not only how they dominate our mental states, and many of our verbal and physical activities are very much driven by those sensory consciousnesses. Though there are, sensory consciousnesses are useful and helpful for us to explore the external world as well as internal world, but they also lead us to act through our body, speech, and mind more destructive way, unhealthy way, destructive, unhealthy, due to following the sense consciousnesses demanding our actions of the body, speech, and mind, cause us difficulties immediately as well as long term, and also that will cause the difficulties to others' lives and the others' environment, place where they live. And that is really something important for us as a explorer, how to live this life more constructively, less destructive. And in that case, whether we have the spiritual path to follow or not, acknowledging, realizing the power of the sense consciousnesses and their demands is very, very important, helpful. So that was my main focus in the morning, plus some of the general points, the acknowledging the life that we have is tremendously the resourceful power, potential, and this resourceful and potential precious life will not last that long. Also, the contemplating and meditating on that nature, on these 2 points, will help us to reduce many of meaningless grasping, the grasping. So those are the points that I raised this morning. So this session, I'll now to start with added on a little bit on the meditation. Many of you already know the meditation, and some of you, it seems, quite advanced meditators. But in order to benefit all of us, including myself, I would like to add it on a little bit about the meditation that I shared with you yesterday. So meditation, this English word in Tibetan is Om, which I mentioned yesterday. And it has a strong connotation, Om, in Sanskrit, Bhavana. It has a connotation of, making our mind, making, familiarizing with the object of the meditation, that what we are meditating on, or in a very colloquial English, getting used to what we are meditating on. That is in general, which I mentioned yesterday, and I'm sure many of you know this. And then yesterday also, in general, the meditation is mental, or the meditation is a tool. A tool, on the one hand, to enhance particularly mental, those constructive qualities such as love, compassion, altruism, patience, tolerance, all those constructive mental state, to enhance, to cultivate further, then the tool is meditation. On the other hand, to minimize, to reduce, and if it is possible, completely eradicate, those unhealthy, destructive mental states, and then again through the meditation, this I already shared with you yesterday. Then coming a little bit, the further, how to use that tool. Then, and there are, generally speaking, there are two, the mental, two kinds of meditation to be done to enhance that tool. That is shamatha and vipassana, which I briefly touched yesterday. And although there are different traditions and different ways to explain and different ways to do these two, the mental state to be cultivated, shamatha and vipassana, the tradition that I follow, particularly the Tibetan Buddhism, which follows some of those great Indian masters like Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, and so on and so forth. And the shamatha on the one hand, which is quite often translated in English called karma biting, or there are different terms are used, but commonly used is karma biting. And then vipassana, insight, or sometimes term is used, special insight, which I briefly mentioned. In this tradition, these two are, they're cultivated or developed in a sequential manner. First, cultivate the shamatha, then on the basis of cultivation of shamatha, then the vipassana is, meditated or through So very general feature of these two, or to understand these two, and in terms of the style of the meditation, there is another term, there's another way to use the term is in Tibetan first, Jogum, Jogum. Quite often in English, it is translated saying placement meditation, Jogum. Jog, literally it means jogba, place, place your hand on the table like that. So jogum, placement meditation, and the other one, vipassana meditation or insight meditation, is called analytical meditation. From these two terms, Jogum and in Tibetan, Tsering, analytical meditation, that give us degrees of the difference when we do the meditation on shamatha meditation and vipassana meditation. Shamatha meditation, when we do the shamatha meditation, requires placing our mind on a particular object or on a particular event, without analysis, without discursive, discursive events. On the other hand, when we say that vipassana meditation is analytical meditation, then it implies when we do the meditation, vipassana meditation, then it requires, elements of analysis, discursive, so that is here, give us the, when we engage in the meditation, shamatha, and vipassana meditation. So I'm giving these are very, what you call the general explanation. And then, as I mentioned yesterday, in this tradition, at a certain stage, when these two, the what you call the shamatha and the vipassana, the meditations are reached at the more in an advanced level, then these two, come into one, or Tibetan, as I mentioned yesterday, Shilak Sungtil, the union of shamatha and the vipassana. At that stage, then it is unique. At that meditation, then there is the element of stability or placement, as well as the analysis. So according to these scriptures and teachings, at that level, when the meditation is at the union of shamatha and vipassana, then that tool becomes extremely powerful tools to cultivate, particularly to cultivate, the wisdoms, such as wisdom realizing impermanence, nature of impermanence, such as wisdom realizing, the nature of selflessness. So, that's how, if we go, what you call this sort of progress with these two, the kinds of meditation, the result of the meditation. Now then, okay, maybe say this. The term mindfulness, that commonly that we use, mindfulness meditation, the term mindfulness in Tibetan, teba. It comes in the meaning or the function of that mindfulness in English and teba. And function is differs according with the context. Like mindfulness meditation, which use these days in a more some Buddhist traditions as well as contemplative, modern contemplative traditions, then the mindfulness in the sense of moment by moment, and non-judgmental or non-judgmental awareness. That is here very much as a mindfulness in general, and that is what some of the contemplative, modern contemplative traditions, also some of the Buddhist traditions, use that, and also what you call the very secular mindfulness meditation also have that kind of elements, it seems. Now, in the cultivation of shamatha, single-pointed mind, stability, qualities of stability and the clarity, which I briefly mentioned yesterday. Stability and the clarity. Stability in the sense, one of the great Tibetan teachers, which I mentioned several times, just on cover, he gave a very, used very nice analogies to understand the stability. Stability in the sense, in Tibetan, he says, Shavna Yunmeri Ombushi. Shavna means if you place your mind on a particular event or in a particular object, Shavna, Yome, there's no, movement, or there's no movement in the sense, that your mind will not move away from the place where you have, placed your mind. Your, is having that kind of movement. You are never without any move. Stay like mountain. You may saying the mountain. So the mountains, wherever the geologically where it's produced, stay there, particularly those big mountains. If you want to take the Himalaya mountain to the UK to make a big tourist business, you can't do that. Or if Donald Trump wants to move certain mountains to the United States, you can't do that. So that's your, stability in that sense. When the stability is cultivated, then the individual, when they place their mind on a particular object, on a particular event, no matter what other positive things or non-positive things are going around, the mind will not move from the object of meditation. And that's what here, this beautiful, analogies, Shama, Yumi, Rinpoche. Stability in that sense. So the qualities, the qualities of the stability and the clarity in the shamatha. And in the vipassana, your mind, when the vipassana meditation is done, is, your mind is trained through the vipassana meditation, your minds become extremely, what you call the fast to, whatever action, whatever object is introduced, your mind is able to do that. Shabna Yumiri, Ombushi. Then the next one, Tanga Keve Mikwa Gunacho. Next line. This is referring to the Vipassana. When through the Vipassana meditation, through the analytical meditation, once your mind is trained, then your minds become extremely serviceable. Wherever you want to focus your mind and do the analysis or to do the investigation, your mind is able to do. And this is what this second line is said. Tanga Tanga means if you let, once the Vipassana through the Vipassana meditation, your mind is trained, then, Tanga means, literally it means if you let go. Tanga means let go. If you let go your mind to do the, whatever virtues, whatever analysis that you want to do, your mind is able to do that. Tanga keve mikpa guna chok. Mikpa, keve mikpa here, literally it means all the virtues events. Your mind is able to engage in all the virtuous events. There's no, the sort of hesitation or confusions or the difficulties. So that is here. Now I'm coming to the mindfulness, that term. So in the Sanskrit tradition, which Tibetan Buddhist tradition is mainly followed, in the Sanskrit tradition which those great Indian masters introduced to Tibetans. The mindfulness with another term is sometimes translated as mental introspection, or sometimes these days there's another term is used, which is relatively new for me, meta awareness. Yeah. But what I'm familiar with is introspection. So in Tibetan, Tempa, Geshe. Tempa is mindfulness, and Geshe is introspection. In this context, for the meditation to cultivate stability and the clarity, to cultivate that kind of mental quality, then application is mindfulness and introspection. These are the two mental tools. Now, in here, mindfulness, the function of the mindfulness is very, very specific. Not that kind of earlier, which I mentioned, generally, moment by moment, non-judgmental awareness, not that. That is one, generally what we talk about mindfulness. When we say mindfulness meditation, I'm doing mindfulness meditation in some Buddhist tradition, as well as, the modern days, what you call the contemplative meditation and traditions. Most of that mindfulness meditation is moment by moment, non-judgmental awareness. But here, the cultivation of clarity and the stability and the clarity to experience calm abiding, shamatha, that out of those two, insight and shamatha, the shamatha here, then many of these great Indian masters, like 4th century Asanga, in his several important texts, the Abhidhamma texts, clearly stated these two mental states, the mindfulness and introspection, as well as later masters, like also, as I briefly touched yesterday, this great Indian master, 7th or late 6th, 7th century, Shanideva, in his Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. There's a chapter, I think it's the 4th chapter, and there's another chapter, the 6th or 5th chapter. You will come across again and again these two mental states, mindfulness and introspection. In this context, application of these two, mindfulness and introspection or mental awareness, the application is for specific reasons, and that need really helpful to know. The first, the application of mindfulness and the cultivation of shamatha in the Sanskrit tradition is very much not losing the object of the meditation. Whatever you choose, either breathing, sensation, whatever that you choose, not to lose the object of the meditation is the function of the mindfulness. Not simply, non-judgmentally observing the moment by moment, whatever is happening right here and now. The function is very much what you have selected to cultivate stillness and the clarity. And the object that you have selected, that not to really lose that object. Lose in the sense either gross form, forget the object of the meditation, or relatively subtle form due to occurrence of the excitation or occurrence of the laxity you lost the object of meditation. And, in a little bit further, when you gain a decrease of stability and the clarity through the mindfulness in your meditation, when these qualities are there relatively, in a relatively sort of, that the practitioner or the individual is, able to experience within his or her mind, there is a degree of stillness, degrees of clarity. Then to enhance, to take further, sort of, enhance those two qualities, then the Geshe in Tibetan is applied. Introspection, or the matter awareness is applied. So in that case, these two, mindfulness and the introspection, these two have a particular function. So it is quite, I'm not going into any detail, but it is useful to know that. Because sometimes people get a little bit confused when the traditional, those Tibetan teachers, when they talk on cultivation of shamatha, because mindfulness is one of the key mental states for the cultivation of shamatha. Then people who come from slightly different Buddhist traditions and also modern, contemplative or the contemplative traditions, then the usage of mindfulness is very, very general, as I mentioned. They get a little bit confused, as well as this introspection, Geshe. The function of Geshe or introspection is really very much monitoring your meditation. Whether the mindfulness is holding the object of the meditation or not. That is the simple function. Introducing the introspection. Little bit later stage, because early stage there's nothing to monitor. Our minds jumping, mindfulness jumping all the time. But through, consistency, and when we do the meditation, carry on this meditation. Of course, as we already mentioned, many times, there will be result. There will be result. That is the natural law. Once causes are created, result is unstoppable. Even Buddha can't stop. So through these, the right meditation, right tools, when we, cultivate stability and the clarity through the application of mindfulness, when we gain certain, results, when we experience certain results, then need to, in order to take further, then the introspection is introduced. It is simple monitoring function. It is said, once we introduce, the introspection, that may disturb the earlier what we have gained, stability and the clarity. But it is the manner of time, gradually introduced, like I remember this very clearly. when I was learning to drive in the UK. Isn't it funny? Sort of age, reaching nearly 40, but still want to learn to drive. Anyway, I did. And so this, I want to tell you a nice story. It was in 1998. Started in 1998. And that time, the center where I worked for 20-something years was in North London, near Principal Park. And there was a very, very sweet gentleman. And I don't know these days whether he's still alive or not. So those days he was driving instructor. So he, comes to my class, and he somehow he knows, I'm interested to learn driving, and at that time I already got the provisional driving license to learn. So one afternoon after the class, we chatted, and he said, "Oh, Geshe, I'm driving instructor. I'll help you to learn." I said, "Oh, okay, that's fine." And thank you, I said. And we had lots of lessons, sometimes 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, sometimes even a little bit longer. Very, very kind, a very gentle guy. But, of course, he taught me a little bit because I'm completely new. But later, when I'm a little bit able to control the steering or these pedals, like, the clutch and all those, he didn't correct me all the mistakes that I made. Because somehow he, out of his, saying respect or whatever, he didn't correct me. And then he said, "Oh, Geshe, now you are ready to take the practical test." "I'm sure." I said, "Yeah." So we booked the first practical driving lesson test. I failed within 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes, I failed because there are 5 or 6 major points. One out of those 5 or whatever. Once you make one of those 5, the examiner will stop right there. They will say, "Okay," because you can't go any further. So that was happened. And what happened was, one of the major points was, I remember this very, very, very clearly, when you got in your car and adjust your car seat, and you have to, before moving your car, there are 3 M's. Mirror, maneuver, mirror, or something like that. But I didn't do that. So that was, and I said to him, I think, about 5 minutes, that's it. And so, so I said to him, "I failed." "Oh, no." So later, one of my other friends, he's an American guy, very, very nice American guy, who lives with us. That time he was monk. And he said, "Oh, Geshe, he's very kind to give you all these lessons free, but because he didn't correct you, all the mistakes you make, and so you are learning all those bad habits." Okay, so I learned those bad habits. Then the other friend, he said, "You must go to the person, who will correct you." And so I will get with the other person. So my point is this. When I was learning that clutch and the gas pedal, these 2 goes really nice to coordinate. Otherwise, your car will stop, isn't it? So it's similar to like this here, introspection. When we reach at the stage, okay, now my mind, I can experience stability and clarity, at a certain level. Now to enhance this stability and clarity, then need to introduce monitoring introspection. Once we introduce the introspection, what we have gained earlier will lose a little bit. With that disrupts. Then what we need to do, we need to learn, relax the setback, also, relax or whatever time that you use. Keep for the time being, keep away the introspection, go back to the earlier what you have done. But then once again to introduce. So like this, gradually it will accept. Like learning how to use those two clutches, gas pedal and those two. So that is here, it is useful. My main point here is to understand the usage of these terms from the different traditions, mindfulness and like introspection. That's what my main points here. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now then, going back to the term meditation, get used to or familiarize with it. When we do the meditation. Now here, it is useful to know. Say, I'm meditating on nature of impermanence. That's one thing that we can do, we can say. And also we can do, I'm meditating on loving kindness, metta, or compassion. So both are meditations. But they're very, very different how to do that. When we are meditating on nature of impermanence of this human existence or any those things and events, what we are doing, we are saying to our mind to understand, to realize that nature of impermanence. In other words, nature of impermanence is there, our minds try to understand it. But if we say, I am meditating on compassion or loving kindness, in that meditation, what we should be doing, the mind which is meditating itself tune into love or compassion. Not love and compassion is out there as an object of meditation, and our mind is here as a meditator. The mind itself, meditator, mind itself, tune into love and compassion. Not, realizing love and compassion. Mind itself tune into And there's a big difference between these two. I mean, both are very, very powerful meditation, extremely useful meditation. But how to do it is very, very different. You can see. When we say I'm meditating, or my mind is meditating on impermanence, there we are not turning our mind into impermanence. We don't need to do that. It is already impermanent, whether we do or not. The meditator, the mind which is meditating, it is already impermanent. We don't need to do that. What we should be doing at that level, in that meditation, the mind is trying to understand that nature of impermanence. So in certain extent, impermanent is there, mind is here, and it is realizing, recognizing or cognizing that nature. Of course, when we go into more what we call the meditative equipoise level, in a very high level of meditation, then may not be have that kind of duality in permanence and the mind. But still there, it is not our mind is turning into impermanence. But when we do the meditation on love, compassion, altruism, tolerance, all these mental qualities, then what we are doing, our mind tuned into love, compassion, altruism. So that is useful. In Tibetan, the term is used, sunam, zinam, sumenam. When we do the meditation on impermanence, nature of dukkha, what you call the nature of selflessness, nature of dependent arising. When you do the meditation in those natures, it is more what in the Tibetan term here, sungna, our mind really recognizing or realizing, understanding those aspects of impermanence, aspects of dukkha, aspects of selflessness, aspects of dependent arising, and so forth, in that way. The other one, love, compassion, altruism, tolerance, all these other mental qualities, then, the zinam, zimba. Zimba is, literally apple, what the English term, there are different translations. In this case, I'm going to use the apprehension. The aspect of apprehension. In other words, what is apprehended? It is within our mental state. It is within our mental continuum, not something outside there as an object to be meditated. So that is the more technical explanation, but useful to know. Very, very useful to know. Generally, what you call this side, the side of the meditation, our mind, which trying to understand the nature of these things, are more, what you call if I use the term, more the wisdom side of the, thinking side of the mind. In here, love, compassion is more emotional side of the mind. That's what is happening. When we say meditation on compassion, love, of course it needs some understanding, certain degrees of understanding. But the actual, during the meditation, it is, that enhancing that kind of emotion, that very much emotional level. Here, the positive emotion. Sometimes the English word emotion is covered in many, the very broad sense. But here I'm talking about emotional in the sense more positive side. Of course, it needs certain analysis, thinking, but as a mental state, it is emotional. So in the Bodhisattva and the teachings, quite often the term is used, wisdom and method. Tapa, Tibetan, Tapa, Shela. Tapa means or the methods, and in there here, such as loving kindness, such as what you call the compassion, altruism, this all more like a means and methods. And in here, share the wisdom, like understanding of nature of impermanence, understanding the nature of dukkha, understanding the nature of selflessness, and so on and so forth. More like wisdom. But for the practitioner, for the individuals, then it is. I'm sure many of you know this. It is strongly recommended is to be cultivated like like two wings of the birds. So in terms of the meditation, say I'm meditating on impermanence, say I'm meditating on mindfulness. Mindfulness, for foundation of the mindfulness. Mindfulness, of body. Mindfulness of feeling. Mindfulness of mind. And mindfulness of phenomena. So when you look at those things, and we need to know, it is useful to know what requires, in the mindfulness of the body. I mean, there are common, what you call the common, traditions when you do the mindfulness of body. It is simply observing or paying attention what's happening right here and now with the body, or the feeling, or the mind, or the phenomena. Simply, raising the awareness. In this case, the main, the main objective is two things: raising the, enhancing that mental qualities, attention, but also through that try to understand try to understand the bodies, in this case, function of the breathing, sensation, and so on and so forth. So meditation is a very, very broad term. As we already see, there are different ways and different ways, different means to do the meditation and so forth. So that is my comments which I thought I would share with you. It is people who like to have a in our lives have a meditation element to keep ourselves particularly mentally at least less stress. It is useful, helpful to really have a in terms of have a structure over the time and to experiment. The meditation instructions are not the universal to everybody. There are many different instructions, and so useful to experiment different instructions, and eventually then select, choose one that you found helpful and useful is working with you. But don't expect, there is a meditation methods or the meditation watch for the instruction, which what there are many these days. When I was in Tsering, the monastery, as I happened, these young boys, young monks, they love eating that instant noodle. They just go somewhere to find what you call the boiled water, hot water, and then go to those shops and where they sell lots of this packaged noodle. So there isn't that kind of instruction that very instant works for you. But there are different instructions, styles. It is good to experiment. Even those just simple mindfulness meditation. Good to experiment several different instructions or the teachings for a given time. Maybe each those major instructions 3-4 weeks. See how it's working for you. Then after 3-4 months, then choose one. Then work with it. Useful to not sit for a long period of time. Don't torture yourself. Not very helpful. Particularly in the early stage, not longer than 10 minutes. If you have time, do 2 10-minute sessions in the morning or in the evening, whichever time that you do. In the early stage, if you do long period of meditation, then that will be same as my driving training with my friends. You will learn the bad habits. Thinking I'm meditating, mind is all over the world. So it is good to do what one of my teachers used to say, short, sharp. Sharp in the sense, short in the sense time, sharp in the sense your mind is very sharp. During that short period, very, very alert, very, very clear. Not like a ice cream exposed in the sun. If you expose ice cream, it can be immediately melt down, not in that way. So that is very, very, useful in the early stage. People who are learning meditation, I'm sure it seems many of you been meditating for a long time, but if they are relatively new, it is useful. Also, that of course in our modern time it is very difficult to say every day, but in a regular basis. I won't say every day, but in a regular basis. If you do the regular basis, then the progress will be relatively easy. And in the meditation circle or the meditator circle, those the people who do the meditation as their main task. In Tibetan, there is a particular expression is used. Never cool down your meditation cushion. In other words, all the time you are sitting there. Gonde Prabodasha. Om is meditation. Then is the cushion. Tampo means Om. Keep your meditation cushion Om. What does that mean? Do it regularly. Do it regularly. And you will see the result. Mm-hmm. So these are some of the simple suggestions, that people who would like to try the meditation. As I mentioned yesterday in our first session, our existence is not just this body. Our existence has, if not more than half, another element, that is the mental states. And to taking care of them, quite often His Holiness Dalai Lama used to say, hygiene of mind. That is what here. And it is done through the meditation. Through the meditation. This will keep our life, at least this life, right here and now, regardless of external challenges or excitement or whatever. At the mental level, it will keep us calm and relaxed, which is very, very healthy, useful. Oh yeah. So this session have a little bit about the meditation. I'm going to add on more on the meditation coming days, but I'll have to do bit by bit. Sometimes it's quite useful, particularly for the relatively new, if we say everything in once, and what the English word is overloaded. If we overload, then the only the reaction is one to reject, particularly at the mental level, or resentment, cultivate, develop resentment. One of my friends in UK, a family who had 3 children, and the couple both are Buddhist, and particularly the lady, I met her soon after I arrived in UK in 1994. That time, they don't have children. And then, maybe 1 or 2 years later, they got their first child, then second and third. And my friend, the lady, she constantly complains to me. Oh, I have children, I can't come to the class, I can't do my meditation, I can't do this, that. And in the early stage, I tease her, oh, don't worry, there will be time. There will be time saying, oh, they're all left, I'm alone. A different complaint will come. So that, the point what I'm making here is, what is useful, what is helpful in this. I'm a little bit lost to my main point when I'm bringing that as an example. Can anybody help me? I'm saying, I'm bringing that. Overload, that's all. That's all. So, the family, because both are Buddhists, they want to bring their children. When we are in North London, they want to bring their children to the center because they think this will help. And when their first child, girl, she reached around 8, I said, don't bring to the center. I can see, of course, a young child want to play instead of coming to meditation center. So I said, don't bring. This will develop resentment. Let it play, don't bring. So, but they didn't listen. They bring children. So even these days, they don't want to go to the center because in this small child, they develop sense of resentment. And it's very, very difficult to distangle that resentment. So here, if we overload these things, then develop resentment, then never to touch. So learning, working with these through the meditation, it is very useful, having very skillfully train, work with your mind, not force. If we force, then resentment will develop. Okay, so that is my today's blah blah. We have plenty of time. If you have some questions or your discussion points, okay, we have 2 here.
Was this when we meditate on the nature of cognitive, when we meditate on love or compassion, it's like meditation on itself. So somehow it's innate. You know what I mean? Like love and compassion is something that we feel in the body. So it's like innate. And I just want to know what so when we try to understand, realizing what does that mean in the body, if we can sort of put them these two others to connect you. Like the way of relating to love and compassion as something that's like sort of like we cultivate it, but it's sort of innate. Something we've like learned.
Mm-hmm. Okay, if I got your question correctly, it is widely agreed, even in a secular, area. It is widely agreed we human beings within us, there is a degrees of, or the seeds to love, to care, to express empathy. That is, naturally within us. And coming into, these Buddhist teachers' understanding, that is very much the main seed that naturally existed, that kind of ability to express empathy. Maybe limited, maybe partial, but still have the ability to express empathy or to express care. And the Buddhist teachers understood, believe that's the seed. And that is, you can use the term innate if you are using that. Innate in the sense not, culturally sort of, coming to later, but it is there. And His Holiness Dalai Lama says very often, that is the seed to cultivate, compassion towards all. Currently, that level of able to share, express empathy might be quite limited. But if we train our mind, which we were talking about earlier through meditation, that can become, can be extended towards many living beings. So if I got your question correctly, we all living beings, and particularly in this case human beings, have the seed to cultivate compassion or loving kindness.
It's more about the other one, like, so what does it mean when the object is, for example, without nerves?
Mm-hmm.
It's outside, so it's not
okay. In that case, again, going back to the yesterday's discussion points, the human mind, and also I touched earlier, human mind has the ability to analyze, has the ability to calculate this and that, able to think more in detail, more in depth. That ability is there again. So in that case, the meditating, analyzing nature of impermanence, the seed being able to do the analysis, the seed is there. Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you tell the difference between genuine renunciation and emotional numbing or avoidance? And what would the warning signs be in practice?
Where do you learn this term renunciation? I'm deliberately holding back that term. I haven't said a single word. Yeah.
From a Buddhist course.
Okay.
Yeah.
What you have learned, renunciation, as a renunciation, what you have learned, just explain me a little bit.
It's the ridding of negative aspects from oneself.
Can you say it again?
Renunciation.
Mm-hmm. from that particular course that you've been, or that book that you read, what you learned as a renunciation?
It's like the freeing of negative feelings and negative, I would say, characteristics. Something you hold on to. Yeah.
Okay. I want to tell you a nice story before explain all that. Have you heard about this great Tibetan meditator called Milarepa? Have you heard that? Okay. I think around 10th or 11th century, there was a great Tibetan meditator. His name is Milarepa. You may have some others in here. Anyway, he was a great meditator. And so because of he was a great meditator, he is very popular, well-known. I mean, I'm not talking about all over the world because those days we don't have the social media, but relatively well-known in Tibet. So he received lots of followers, he get lots of offerings, though he doesn't need. He is not interested in those, the things. And in Lhasa, there was a guy who was very interested in Milarepa's, what's happening around the Milarepa. And he thought, okay, that is the thing I want to do, this Tibetan guy. So he is quite well off materially, that Tibetan guy. And he decided to give away all his possessions. Whether he had horses or whatever, he gave away all his possessions and he went to the mountains, like the Milarepa. So he said, I renounce all my possessions and I want to stay in the mountain. He thought he would become very famous because Milarepa renounced everything and Milarepa is very famous, very popular. So he thought that's the best way to become very popular and a very well-known person. So he gave away all his possessions and he went to a mountain. And he waited. People will come to bring his food, because it happened to the Milarepa. People bring food and so forth. So he waited 1 day, 2 days, all his small quantities of tsamba, that barley roasted flour, which is Tibetan, eats a lot. So then day by day, his tsamba, small quantity that he has, is reducing. Of course, he needs to eat and nobody comes up to him to offer food. So after a week or 10 days, he realized he made a big mistakes. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, because nobody comes and nobody knows he's up in the mountain. And nobody comes to bring his food offering and so forth. So eventually, he has to come down to the town. Then he said, this person called Milarepa, he made me better. So I'm talking about renunciation. So this term, renunciation, is in Tibetan term go with that English term is Nyejung. Nyejung. It is very much related to the mental attitude. Nyejung. And the term renunciation is already, this term has Christian, the Judeo-Christian connotation, renunciation. That means giving up physically. But the Tibetan term, which renunciation, it's difficult to get a good, one, simple term like that, a term to go with the Tibetan term, Ngejung. It is a determination within his or her mental continuum, determination to be free from these, if I use the term, unenlightened states. It is the determination, mental determination, not physical, leaving behind, like this Tibetan guy did, but it is the mental determination to be free from this kind of unenlightened state. Nye Jung, Nye Jung, Nye Bar, that means determination. Jung means it has many meanings. It depends on the context. Here is arise. Your mind is arise from that determination to be free from the unenlightened state. So it is very loaded, even in Tibetan sense, Nejung, it is very loaded term, but spiritually, from the spiritual, development, it is very, very early important mental qualities to be cultivated. And so I usually use the term, instead of just one particular term, like the renunciation, I use the determination to be free from unenlightened state. Or another term is, quite often the term is used, to be free from, as jargon, to be free from samsara. So if you keep that term, you will get the real meaning of renunciation. Otherwise, you may become the second person with that Tibetan, after that Tibetan guy. That's more than more than 110, 15, many years ago. It is not physically or sort of giving up physical material things. It is mentally, cultivating that kind of determination. And that's what he had in Nejung. So what is your second part of your question?
So comparing that to emotional numbing and avoidance.
Okay. Numbing.
Numbing.
Why do you use that term, numbing?
I think it's a good way to describe like suppressing of emotions and the things you don't want to hold on to. So creating
I think the numbing is not a very nice word in this context. In the spiritual development, numbing is not helpful. In the spiritual mental development, it is extremely helpful to have a very attentive mental state. If you keep your mind in a numbing state, your mind becomes very dull. Don't you think? You mean numbing in the sense of when, for example, when you do go to the hospital, when they do a small operation, they will give you a injection to feel not feeling like that. Are you saying that word, numbing?
Yeah, emotional numbing.
Okay. Emotional numbing is not very positive at all. It is, not very good at all. Emotionally, sometimes people use emotionally very sensitive. It may cause some pain, difficult, if that sensitive is not taken care well. But usually it's good to have emotion. Your emotion is very sensitive. But that sensitivity should be taken care of with the skill and very useful. Emotionally numbing is not very constructive, I think.
Yeah, so in practice,
I don't want to say in front of all these people, I don't want to criminalize you. I never take drugs. If you take drugs, do you make your mind numbing?
in some cases,
Yes. So here it is not like that. You really, in the mental training, this is one thing which yesterday, the term that we use, taming the mind, taming. Sometimes the literal translation, Tibetan translation, some people translate it subduing the mind, which is not very nice translation. Here, whatever that what kind of meditation that you do, it is really, bringing your mind to understand what is going on. So if you cultivate that kind of suppressing state of mind or technique or numbing states of technique, I don't think it is that helpful for the long term.
I was thinking like, I feel like it is possible in some cases to think you have fully, this is obviously using my definition of renunciation, like free yourself of suffering you're holding on to or possess. And then, and then I was just wondering, like, how would you tell the difference between the two? I feel like especially me, I told myself stored narratives that I had to be free from the suffering where I actually was suppressing it.
All my suggestion is be skillful, be careful. Those are the two things. If we want to deal with if we do these drastic things, not necessarily helpful. This is exactly, I gave you that story. That Tibetan guy did drastic things. It is not wrong going up the mountain to follow this great Tibetan teacher, but skillful is important and careful. Because, really to people who want to do these kind of drastic things need a still in their heart. If we do drastic things without that kind of strength in our heart, we will fail. So I think all my suggestion is be careful, be skillful when you are training your mind and listening, renunciation, careful. Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you very much for your teaching. Yeah.
just I want to ask one question about meditation. As
Okay.
you said, it's from some we heard about meditation. So as you said, when you do the meditation on loving kindness or compassion, so what does it mean? Because sometimes we heard that just sitting and contemplation, are you
Okay.
saying, or is it something else?
Okay. Okay. Before we do the, seriously take up to do the meditation on loving kindness or great compassion or compassion, it is useful. It is useful to learn what are the benefits. What are the benefits? Me to develop our current mind into more compassionate, more caring. What are the benefits that I will get? That kind of, the answer to that question is quite helpful. Then we will not fail on the way to do the meditation. When we are fully convinced, if I meditate on compassion, I'll get this and this benefits. Before to say, if I do a meditation, if I meditate on compassion, this will benefit to others. That's the next. If we really don't convince ourselves meditation on compassion will benefit to me, it is very, very difficult to understand meditation on compassion will benefit to others. There's a nice statement by this great Indian master, which I made several times, the quotation, Shantideva, in his guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. It says like this in Tibetan first. Rangi tuendo tidesim melum tuya mamina shengi tuendo kalaje. So rangi tuendo tidesim, for one's own sake, for one's own benefit, if we don't think, even in the dream, if we don't think, or if we don't understand the benefits of cultivation in this context, cultivation of altruistic mind for one's own benefit, then Shantideva says next two lines, Shengi Tando Kalaje. The altruistic mind will never grow or never cultivate within ourselves for the sake of others. Although cultivation of altruistic mind, the main focus is to benefit to others, but to really to understand this altruistic mind will benefit to others, first we need to understand cultivation of benefit. Cultivation of altruistic mind will benefit to me. So like that, it is very, very honest in her advice I found. This for 3 lines. The Shantideva is talking, explaining with regard to the altruistic mind, bodhicitta. So it is exactly the same in here. Loving kindness or great compassion, when we try to do the meditation, if we plan to do the meditation, we need to convince ourselves the benefits of cultivation, of compassion, first to me. So in that case, then we need certain study analysis, discussion, learning from others, what it will benefit me, listen from others, read from others, and then really, try to experiment. Once that we're convinced, then here the, cultivation of meditating on compassion. It really involves very much, in this case, focusing on others' pain and difficulties. Main focus is other living beings. Other living beings. And not just other living beings, but their pain and difficulty. It is not easy. When I talked to, because I was very admired, amazed, some of these doctors, nurses, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, taking care of these very sick people. When I go to visit, when I was in London, I do occasionally to go to visit hospital to meet some of the friends and so forth. Very, very difficult to see the pain, struggle, and all those things. And these people who work with those patients, they work with, their years like that. So it's not easy. You need mental strength. But also same time, this young gentleman said, not to cultivate numbness when you see the pain and difficulties of the patient. So that, here it involves lots of understanding about dukkha. That's what Buddha said, suffering, nature of suffering. Particularly when we start to cultivate compassion in a more wider living beings, not one particular person or the living beings, in a wider living beings, our understanding about dukkha need to go in more deeper levels. As I briefly touched earlier, today, the current English king does not suffer with a lack of home, has several palaces, and each palace has many rooms. But his subject, the homeless people, suffer with not having home. At that level, one suffers, one, I don't know, maybe he wants more, but anyway, does not. But at certain levels of suffering, same, they have the same suffering. The king and the homeless is our same. So our understanding about the nature of dukkha, the depth of the dukkha, for a certain extent, for us, when we see those so-called successful people, and when we see their lifestyle, instead of seeing the dukkha with towards those people, we may instead what's called admire their lifestyle. So cultivation of genuine compassion or towards, impartial towards all living beings, impartial. It requires depth of understanding. And in here, the teachings of the Buddha, his first teaching, which I touched briefly yesterday or today, the Four Noble Truths. Within the Four Noble Truths, the first Noble Truth, dukkha. Understanding of dukkha is extremely relevant to cultivate great compassion. So meditation on love, loving kindness, great compassion or compassion, altruism, it is really very much emotional cultivations, but it requires, as I mentioned earlier, some of the most important realities, understanding of some of the most realities in this understanding of some of the most realities in this case, dukkha. Did I answer your question? I'm not sure. I've gone round and round, but that is what I feel.
Thank you.
One more question?
I remember this. I remember that you said today in this session, when causes be created, we cannot solve the result. If Buddha cannot do it.
Ah,
Yeah? So, because, I'm in the age I have quite accumulated a lot of bad karma. So I want to get rid of it. So I do cleaning methods, like Vajrasattva. So the question is, does it really clean the seed of the karma or only some effect?
we are only 10 minutes. I need to go at least an hour to give you a convinced answer to your question. Okay. So first, briefly here, if we look at outside world, naturally, how it works in our garden, in our vegetable garden, in our flower garden, how it works. That is very, very useful examples. Once all the causes and conditions are met, result is death. Result is death. No matter how powerful methodology that we use, the in your garden, if you have a apple tree to produce a delicious watering, very that apple tree. Once that apple tree produce that apple, there's nothing you can do. Only thing is you have to eat it. Or share it with your friend. Eat that delicious apple. And it is the same. It is the same. If we apply to the internal, when the causes and conditions are already met, completed, the experience either pleasant or unpleasant. Only thing is to experience it. there are times along the way, while these causes and conditions are gathering, we can do something. Like in your apple tree, in your garden. If you want more watery apple, you can add in some other things. You will get water, add it in a very juicy apple. But once it is already formed, you can't. Similar to that, the experiences of joy, happiness, fulfillment on the one hand, sadness, difficulties, painful on the other hand. Once causes and conditions are already met, completed, only thing is we need to experience it. There's one thing that we can do when we are experiencing it. What we can do is mentally, particularly on the unpleasant things, mentally not added on more difficulties. And this is my short answer. If you need longer answer, there are lots of things, because your question is a very loaded question. You said purification, clearing, and so many things. For the Sattva, these are very, very skillful methods to use, but there's a limit.
I would like to know this limit.
That's what I already said.
Yeah.
Once causes and conditions are met, completely. Even the Vajrasattva stands in front of you, can't do that much, may say sorry. Because it is natural law. Yeah. You can't do that much with the natural law.
No, you just can't accept it.
Sorry?
I just can't accept it.
No.
Natural law.
I mean, here, then, as I just said, how to accept, on the one hand, those painful, difficult things, and how to enjoy those pleasure, joy, fulfillment. And you are in that level. We are in that level. And that is here, which I said, do not add more. And then we can mentally play with that. And here, this lojong practice, mind training practice is extremely helpful. Not added on, extra pain, difficulty on what is already there due to the previous causes and conditions. Yeah, we can look.
And yet get up. And yet, Geshe, Middle we've got many people currently create himself his next home. I mean, given that we're not.
Yes, I think how can we know, how can I know, what happened to Miller when he passed away? I don't know. Do I? I don't know. We can speculate. His negatives are clear. Okay. Shall we say the 21 paragraphs? What is the page number of the book?
270.
Oh. 270. Om Je Ma Pa Ma Cha Se Chang Ze Po Ma Ma Pa Jie Ne Ge Ji Lo Dang Ta Ji Ge Sun Be Che Di She Ji Ge Sa Chi Wa Lian Ni Chu Chang Ze Dong Ge La Gang Wa Jie Ni Si Be Shen Gang Wa Gong Da So Wa Na Ji Ra Pu Che Ra Pa Chang Ze Sin Le Che Ne Ge Ji Bei Me Chang Na Pa Ra Jie Ma Jie Mo Su Zhi Pa Du Xi Ma Se Ma Sang De Ju Ni Ma Chang Ze Di Xin Xie Be Fu Du Tai Na Ma Ya Zhi Ma Le Pa Du Xin Ba Ya Wei Se Di Xin Du De Ma Chang Ze Du Da Ra De Dang Chou Dang Ga Dang Ye Ge Du Mu Xiang Pi Ne De Le Ba Me Ba Gu Ba Ma Chang Ze Dian Jin Me La Sang Long La Na So Wan Zhu Che Ma Zhong Wo Ro Ma Ji Sa Na La Ne Je So Di De Ne De Ma Chang Ze Dian Jin Cha Tong Pe Di Pa Ru Zhu Bo Ra Tu Chou Ma Jie Lu Yin Yang Xia Di Ne De Me Mo Tu Guan Xi Du Pa Ma Chang Ze Tu Li Ji Pa Jian Po Di Li Pa Wu Du Pa Zhou Ma Qu Ye Xian Ne Zhou Nie Den Ze Dao Wo Tang Jie Ma Lu Se Ma Chang Ze Gun Zhou Sun Ze Cha Ye Se Ne Tu Pa Na Pa Ge Ma Ma Lu Chao Ji Po Lo Jie Rang Di Wei Di So Nong Zhe Ma Chang Ze La Tu Ga Wang Ji Wu Yin Wei Di Chen Hua Ma Xie Ba Ra Xie Tu Da Ra De Da Ji De Wang Du Se Ma Chang Ze San Xi Zhong Wei So Tang Jie Bu Ma De Ma Ni Ma Chong Yi Ye Hua Yi Ge Mu Pong Ba Tang Jie Na Ba Ra Zhu Chang Ze Du Bo Du Ye Jian Ba Tang Jie Xin Du Ba Ra Re Me Zhen Ne He Hua Me Da Ba Ren Xin Du Le Ra Ba Se Ma Chang Ze Ge Le Ta Ma Me Ba Wei Chen Wei Wu Ne Ne Ma Ye Zhang Yin Gu Gu Ne Go Ge Da Yi Gu Ne Na Ba Ra Zhou Ma Chang Ze Sa Ti Ma La Chang Bi Ti Ti Nu Jin Sha Di Dong Ma Chong Ni Jin Zi Yi Ge Hu Ge Re Ba Du Bo Na Ni Ge Ma Chang Ze De Ma Ge Ma Xi Ma Nyang Ne De Xi Yu Ne Ma So Wa Hong Da Yang Da De Di Hua Chen Ho Zhou Ba Ni Ma Cha Ze Fu Ne Ko Ra Ga We Zhan Yi Wu Ne Na Ba Ra Ge Ma Yi Ye Chu Lu Ma Ne Gu We Ri Ba Le Tu Ma Ni Ma Cha Ze Tu Li Sha Ni Da Be Hong Gi Na Be Sa Hu Ni Ma Re Ra Le Da Ra Da Bi Che Jie Den Su Na Yo Wa Ni Ma Chang Ze La Yi So Yi Na Be Re Da Da Jie Cha Na Na Ma Da Ra Ni Zhi Pei Ji Yi Ge De Na Ma Le Ba Ne Se Ma Chang Ze La Yi So Yi Ye Bo Ha Tu Mian Ji Yi De Ma Gui Ne Bu Jia Da Wa Ji Ge Se Da Ne Ma Nian Ba Se Ma Chang Ze Ni Ma Da Wa Jie Be Ji Ni Ba La Ra Se Ma Ha Ra Ni Zhi Du Da Ra Yi Xin Tu Cha Gu Rin Ne Se Ma Chanse tini sumnam kare, shire toda yanda dema, dema nije son, chomba dure raksho nima, sale mati tepa tita, chanse wani nisho sama. Thank you. Thank you. Oh yeah, the Root Institute has printed this one. I'm not following very line by line, but overall I'm following this. Okay? It is good to you to read. As I mentioned the other day, you have a role to learn to reading and discussion, okay? Thank you.